I've been avoiding these kind of handhelds for quite some time. These handhelds whose primary function are streaming. I mean, Steam, Remote Play, and Game Pass can be accessed on almost every smartphone, tablet, and laptop. I just didn't understand the market for handhelds whose primary function is to do something that almost every handheld device can do. But I have to say, I'm now starting to get it. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Abxylute. It's a Android-based handheld whose primary function is, you guessed it, streaming. This thing has been out for a while and retails for around $200 US and claims to be the ultimate streaming solution for your PlayStation, Xbox, and PC running Steam. But how well does it actually perform? Let's take a closer look. Inside the box, the Abxylute comes with a nice included travel case. You also get a USB Type-C cable for charging and data transfer, and a set of instructions. It does not come with an included power brick, which kinda sucks, but that seems to be more and more common these days. Taking a closer look at the handheld, you have 4 face buttons, a directional pad, 2 Hall effect joysticks that look and feel very similar to the ones that are on the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons. You have a home, screen capture, and these 2 buttons that I assume serve as a start and select function. You also have 2 front-facing speakers. Top side, you have 4 shoulder buttons, a power button, volume up and down, as well as this little pinhole that I assume is one of the microphones. Over on the bottom, you have the micro SD card slot, a 3.5mm headphone jack, a USB Type-C port, and the pinhole for the other microphone. One of the first things that stood out to me with this handheld is just how thin it is. It immediately made me concerned with heat, but seeing as how its primary function is to stream, I really don't think that's going to be an issue here. As you can see by its specs, it's not that impressive by today's standards, but some of its most important features are its 7-inch 1080 display with a 60Hz refresh rate, its strong Wi-Fi antenna, and the 5200 mAh battery. Not only should the games look really good on here, lag and latency should be at a bare minimum, and we could easily get more than 6 hours of playtime with this beefy battery. Despite being an Android device, it has its own custom user interface that's really clean and organized. Of course, you can always switch to tablet mode and use it like a more standard Android device at pretty much the push of a button. It comes installed with shortcuts to any streaming app you could possibly ever need. But it also has full Play Store access, so at any point in time you can go in there and download any of the apps that you're accustomed to using on your standard Android devices. I think it pretty much goes without saying because you can see it with your own eyes, but this display is absolutely gorgeous. Everything was nice and vibrant, and those 60 frames a second are really noticeable. Because it is an Android device, I just had to go ahead and install some emulators natively just to kind of see what we're working with here. It can comfortably emulate up to Sega Dreamcast, and it manages to dabble a little bit with some PSP. It's far from the best performance, but you're really not buying one of these to use as an emulation handheld. But still, nonetheless, it's nice to know it has that functionality, even if it's on a limited basis. Another thing that really stands out to me about the Abxylute is just how comfortable it is to hold. I'm not sure if you can tell by looking at it on camera, but it has this texturized finish to it, as well as the positioning of the grips just make this thing an absolute joy to hold. An easy 10 out of 10 in terms of ergonomics. Another cool feature is that these face buttons are backlit, and you can actually change the color of the glow. Syncing it up with Steam was a breeze, and I was playing within seconds. All of the buttons felt really solid. If I could compare them to something, I would say they felt like the buttons that are on the Nintendo Switch Lite. I usually prefer the tactile micro switch style buttons that are like on the Joy-Cons or the PlayStation Vita, but these are about as good as you could get without them being that type of button. The D-pad is definitely not my favorite style, but I didn't seem to have any real issues with it. I was still able to pull off moves. While playing a shooter, I noticed something was off about the analog sticks. Something just felt really odd and I couldn't put my finger on it. Initially, I thought I was experiencing some kind of latency, but I knew that wasn't the case. I closed out Steam and installed a gamepad tester app that I use often. And what I found is that while the upper quadrants of the analog sticks seem to work just fine, the lower ones seem to reach full tilt super easily. I mean, you don't even need to pull it down all the way, and it's registering as a full-on press. Fortunately, I don't believe this is a hardware issue, and I believe it's completely a design issue. I was actually able to completely remedy this by putting on a thumbstick grip. Overall, I was very satisfied with the way it handled Steam. But for me, where this thing truly stands out is used as a remote play device for the PlayStation 5. My goodness, does the PlayStation 5 look good on this device. Prior to this, most of my remote play was being done on a tablet that I own or on my Steam Deck, and the Abxylute blows both of them completely out of the water. Colors, shadows, and animations look better than any device that I've done remote play on thus far. Not only does everything look great, but these front-facing speakers really got some kick to them. The audio coming from the PS5 was clean and crisp the whole time, and lag and choppiness were practically non-existent. Now granted, I do have pretty good internet, but even on the Steam Deck, I would experience some choppiness while using it as a remote play device. I had no idea remote play could be this good. I just always thought it was a flawed feature that Sony incorporated into their consoles, and there was no getting around the wonkiness. But now that I've experienced it on the Abxylute, I'm never going back to using it on something else. And I can safely say that I now understand why things like this have a market. Going into this, I honestly thought that I was going to be checking out another half-baked, underperforming Android handheld. But that honestly wasn't the case, and this thing stands on its own two legs and has a ton of meat on its bones. Whether you're streaming from a PC, Xbox, or PlayStation, it handles its primary function exceptionally well. Add the extra layer of being a fully functional Android device, and this thing has a ton of versatility. If you're in the market for a retro emulation handheld, this isn't the one for you. But if you're looking for a perfect extension of your home consoles or PC, the Abxylute might be worth checking out. If you guys are interested in the Abxylute, I'll put links in the description below. Until next time, this is Ness, signing out.